Welcome back to Precise Pilates Online for our autumn term week 1. We're going to begin laying on our back, utilising our chi ball today to study our reconnection to our T-bone connection. So we're going to bring ourselves down onto the mat. You're going to start with either a fully inflated or a half inflated chi ball. If you don't have a chi ball at home, you can do this without. The cueing will be the same, except you will not benefit from being on an unstable surface. But we're going to place this full or half inflated, if you'd like, chi ball at our tailbone, our sacrum, and we're going to utilise our hands and bend these to roll ourselves down. Now, as we bring ourselves down onto the ball, we want to make sure that the ball is not in the lumbar spine or underneath the glutes. So thread your hands into your lower back. If you find that you are meeting the ball, you want to roll your lumbar spine gently over the ball here and make sure the pelvis itself is floating on the ball. Equally, 2 hands should be able to float underneath your buttocks. Your bum should not be resting on the mat. Have a little wiggle, make sure you feel comfortable on this ball. You can take some air out of the ball if you choose at any time in this exercise. Now we're going to relax the shoulders from the ears, and if you need to, grab a pillow and place it underneath the head to take pressure off of the cervical spine. We're going to begin by just focusing on T-zone, pelvic and lumbar spine mobility. So we're going to switch on to T-zone here. Now we're aware that our lumbar spine gap is a little bit bigger than normal. We want to make sure that we're working from a deep center. So with your hands on your pelvic bones, take a nice deep breath in and lift the pelvic floor. Now the T-zone already has a small amount of recruitment. You're on an unstable surface. So on the next exhale, let's exaggerate that here. Now we're going to flatten these abdominals as if we're zipping up from pubic bone to belly button into a pair of skinny denim jeans. You want to draw your hip bones closer together to do the button on up, flattening those abdominals from hip to hip. Now that you're switched on, you should feel underneath your fingers your T-zone connection strong. Relax the hands down, either onto your hip bones or by your sides, and focus on your breath. Take a deep breath in. Feel the lungs expand out to the side, and on the exhale, the lungs sink in and down. Good, inhale deep, and exhale. Run the hands up to the side of the rib cage, inhale into the palms, and on the exhale, the ribs sink in and down to focus on the obliques. One more, inhale into the lungs, and exhale, feel the ribs sink in and down. Run the hands back onto those pelvic bones, your asis. And now let's move the pelvis. Keeping the knees facing towards the ceiling, we're going to exhale as one hip bone drops down to the side and off the side of the ball. Knees are non-moving, we're using some pressure through our feet. Inhale, come back to center. Drop the opposite hip down to the side on the exhale. Feel the pressure moving between the soles of the feet, and inhale to center. Try not to let the knees shift out to the side. Try and move your pelvis from side to side, utilizing your back fascia and that movement sling down to the soles of the feet. Gentle tilting side to side, allowing the pelvis to move a little bit free. Good. Let's do one more each side. And then we're going to come back to the center where both hip bones are level. Let's take the movement into forwards and backwards tilt. Take a deep breath in, T-zone on. We're going to tilt the hip bones back. Now the pubic bone is going to lift as the tailbone beneath you reaches down. Take a deep breath in, and now think about resetting. So coming back to pelvic bones level and your pubic bone softly drawing to neutral. On the exhale now, tilt the pelvis forwards. Feel the pubic bone draw down between your thighs and your lumbar spine arch. Good, inhale, come back to neutral. Good, on the exhale, we tilt the pelvis back. We feel the tailbone lift, the pubic bone lift, and then inhale, come back to center. Exhale, drop the pubic bone down and feel your lumbar spine arch. Good. A few more either way here. Again, not moving the knees out to the side, trying to utilize the pressure through the shoulders and the feet to tilt the pelvis forwards and back on this ball. Now we want to come into neutral, so our hip bones will be level and our pubic bone and tailbone are in a floated position parallel to the mat beneath you and the ceiling above you. Neither one is lifted, and your pubic bone, your tailbone, and your asis create a beautiful triangle floating at the front of your pelvis. Excellent. Hold that connection, neutral spine, and now neutral pelvic placement. From this position, staying switched on, we're going to go to lift foot. Exhale, let's lift the foot from the mat, knee lifting above your hip bone. Good, abdominals are flattening. Inhale, place the foot down, change sides. Keep the hip bones level. Exhale, let's float the foot from the mat. Good, inhale, bring it down. Again, your pubic bone, your tailbone are floating parallel to the mat beneath you and the ceiling above you. Your shoulder placement is also very balanced. And you shouldn't find that you're wiggling side to side off your ball. If you are, I'd like you to think, do I need a little bit more of my T-zone? Do I need to release some tension off my neck and shoulders? Am I trying to scrunch my shoulders around my earlobes? Let's do one more each side. Foot lifts on the exhale. Inhale, foot comes down. One more. Exhale, lift foot. And inhale, place the foot down. Beautiful. From this position, let's take it into arm prep. Arms by your sides. We're going to switch back onto T-zone. That's inhale, lift pelvic floor. Exhale, focus on the T-zone connection. Now you're going to float your hands directly over your chest. Shoulders draw down from the earlobes. On the exhale, as we reach overhead, the ribs are sinking in and down. Hands are extending as shoulders reach down your back. Inhale, hands over chest. Good. On the exhale, as we slowly reach overhead, the ribs want to sink in and down on the exhale as the shoulders glide down your back. Inhale, hands over your chest. Keep it going. So we'd like to think about this now connection at the front of the body from rib to hip, the obliques, which are keeping the rib cage and the upper back from extending. You're working strongly with the T-zone to keep the pelvis and the lumbar spine in neutral, and now the upper back. Don't scrunch your shoulders around your ears. Think about them drawing down your back as you reach overhead. Again, the knees and the feet are staying aligned and equal pressure between them. Let's take it into a circle. We're going to reach overhead, exhale. Now, keeping our body balanced on the ball, we sweep the arms wide. They could float just a millimeter from the carpet. Bring the hands to the hip bones. Inhale, hands over the chest. Exhale, reach overhead, sink the ribs in and down. Sweep the arms wide of the body, hands towards the hip bones. Inhale, hands over chest. Now you're adding a little bit more of that abdominal connection if you're swaying side to side and you feel your knees rolling out. Equally, we're focused on keeping the oblique connection. Let's do two more. Exhale, reach. Sweep wide, hands draw down towards the hip bones. Inhale, hands over chest. One more. Good, release the hands by your sides. Have a little rest. We're going into lift and extend next. So, switching back on, inhale, pelvic floor, exhale, T-zone. Think about that tailbone, that pubic bone, staying level, parallel. And on the next exhale, let's lift foot. Now the lift of the foot is the knee coming above the pelvis. We want the abdominals flattening, allowing us to hold our single leg tabletop. We're going to extend the leg from hip to toe, really point up through your hip, the back of your knee fascia and your second toe. And then on the exhale, gently lower. Abdominals are holding pubic bone and tailbone level. Inhale, bring the knee back over the hip, place it down, let's change sides. Equal pressure through the shoulders and the palms. Exhale, lift the foot, single leg tabletop. Make sure the hips are level. Extend the leg from hip to toe. Exhale to lower. Now only lower the leg as far as you can keep that tailbone, that pubic bone level, and the abdominals flat. Inhale, knee to tabletop, place it down. Keep alternating your sides for your lift and extend, and really focus on the connection of the deep center. Now we want to make sure there's no tension through the upper back, no tension through the neck, so melt the shoulders back. Use a little bit of pressure through your arms to keep yourself grounded. Good, keep breathing into the movement. Exhale to extend and lower. Inhale, knee to hip and down. Let's do one more each side for lift and extend. Good. Place the foot down. Let's do one more. Exhale. Extend, open up the back of the knee, point out. Exhale to lower. Good, inhale, bend the knee over the hip. Place the foot down, have a little break. Excellent. We're going to look at utilising that single leg tabletop position with lift and extend, and possibly adding the opposite arm into that arm prep or arm circle for half coordination. So we want to think about our connection. We want to think about staying level. Now you're going to switch back on. Inhale, lift pelvic floor. Exhale, focus on the T-zone. Zip out and flatten. Tailbone, pubic bone level. And if you need to have a little jiggle on the ball to make sure that they are parallel between the mat and the ceiling, make sure you do that here. Now you're going to bring one leg into single leg tabletop. We've just done our lift and extend, and we want to make sure we're adding the same amount of concentration onto this leg. Now, if you've got a quite stable single leg tabletop, you may float the opposite arm from the mat. Float it directly in line with the chest and hold it here. Now, just going for balance, just the leg is going to move. We're going to extend the leg from hip to toe. Abdominals are flattening. Exhale to lower the leg. Two thighs to the line into that 45-degree angle. Inhale, bend the knee over the hip. Stay on this side. Extend and exhale to lower. Now the opposite arm that's still on the mat could stay connected, pushed lightly into the mat here, shoulders down. If you feel like you could add the arm, as you exhale to lower that extended leg, you're going to reach the arm overhead to draw the rib cage in and down. Inhale, hand over chest, knee over hip. Exhale, arm prep, arm extension. Utilize the pressure through that remaining foot into the mat and the remaining arm to keep you balanced. Good, exhale, extend, reach overhead, ribs sink in and down. Inhale, hand over chest. Possibly taking it into the circle. Exhale, extend, sweep the arm towards the hip bone. Inhale, hand over chest, knee over hip. Exhale, extend and lower. Reach by sweeping hand towards the hip. Inhale, hand over chest, knee over hip bone. Good. Let's go for 3 of your half coordination. Now focus on the movement. We want the rib cage and those deepest abdominals really drawing in and down to support this position as we're on this unstable surface. Good, last one. Come back to hand floating over chest. Rest it down by your side. Bring the foot back down to the mat. Have a little break before we repeat on the other side. Good, switching back on, inhale, lift pelvic floor, exhale, T-zone. Shoulders released from the ears. We're going to exhale, lift the foot for single leg tabletop. Check that your connection is strong before you add on. Good. Now the opposite arm is going to float from the mat in line with the shoulder. Draw the shoulder from the ear. You can push into the supporting base foot and that remaining arm into the mat. Hold your arm balance, just the leg, extend and exhale to lower. Good, inhale, bring the knee to tabletop. If you're wobbly, you might have to bring the arm back down and work just through the leg line. Good, extend and exhale to lower. Now if you're confident, we can add the arm prep. We can extend the leg and exhale to lower as we extend the arm overhead, ribs sink in and down. Inhale, knee over hip, hand over chest. Extend and lower for half coordination, really focusing on the exhale, the abdominals and the rib cage, really focusing in on that central connection, shoulder gliding down away from your earlobe as you reach overhead. Add the circle, extend. We can sweep the hand wide towards the hip bone. Inhale, hand over chest, knee over hip. Really focused on those flattening abdominals. The rib cage sinking in and down and the shoulder blade. Really strong cross-body connection here. Use your supporting foot and arm resting on the mat to really stabilize and keep you balanced on your ball. Let's do one more. Extend, exhale to reach overhead and lower. Sweep the arm towards the hip bone. Inhale, hand over chest, knee over hip. Place the arm down, bring the foot back to the mat. Beautiful. Now we're going to go into single leg circle, bent knee, not the straight leg option, just to really centralize and focus on those abdominal muscles. And then some of you may like to try coming into double leg tabletop, but I'll give you an option if you're not working here yet. So we're going to switch back on. Remember, you want to have a level pelvis. So level pubic bone, level tailbone, and level asis. The lumbar spine wants to feel like it's not compromised, it's not arching, and it's not being pulled back into the mat. We want to lift the pelvic floor and use the transverse band to keep this level. Now we're going to come into single leg tabletop once more, knee alignment over hip on the exhale. We're going to rotate the whole thigh out from the hip joint, knee aligned over the pelvis. Now we're staying with bent knee circle for this. Place your hands on your hip bones. We're going to draw a beautiful circle, sweep the leg down and out to the side, exhale, inhale around and in. Now I want you to be really focused on the pelvis staying level. So if that means a smaller, slower circle, then make that circle beautiful and precise. Now I want you to run your hands up to the rib cage on the opposite side of the leg that's circling in the hip joint. On the exhale, we want our obliques on rib to hip at the side of the body to be switching on to stabilize. Dig your fingers into the squishy waist, and you should find as you drop the leg down and out to the side, exhale, the obliques are really activating to stabilize you here. Push that supporting base leg into the mat. Don't let the knee be rolling out. Let's reverse the circle, come to the top, check it still turned out from the hip joint, knee over hip. We take the leg out to the side and down, exhale, inhale around and in. Place the fingers in the squishy waist, one hand on the pelvis to check the T-zone is on and it's level. Good. Exhale out to the side and down, inhale up and in. Keep that turn out from the hip joint. Keep one stabilizing base leg connected to the mat, knee not rolling out. Shoulders from the ears, 2 more. Last one, come back to the top of the circle, realign the leg straight, place the foot down, have a little rest. Take it to the other side. So we're going to come into single leg tabletop first. Now staying with bent knee circle, just so we can really stabilize through the obliques, we're rotating the whole thigh out from the hip joint, knee alignment over the pelvis. Placing one hand onto the hip bone of that single leg tabletop leg, the opposite hand resting on the side of the rib cage and deep into the jelly waist between the ribs and the hips. Take the leg out to the side and down, exhale, inhale around and in. Now draw that small circle, release the shoulders from the earlobes, dig the fingers into the jelly waist. And as the leg drops out to the side, feel the obliques firing on the opposite side to keep the torso stable. Hip bones level, T-zone working, a little bit of a push through that supporting base leg into the mat to keep yourself from rock and rolling through the pelvis. Good. Deep exhale as the leg drops down and out to the side, inhale around and in. One more in this direction, and then we're going to change. Come to the top of the circle, keep the turn out from the thigh, out to the side, exhale down, inhale around and in. Good. Keep your focus on a level pelvis, on the jelly waist, becoming active as we circle that femur in the hip joint. Good. Release the tension off your neck. Excellent work. Let's make this circle precise. Slow it down if you're rock and rolling. 2 more. Last one. Come to the top of the circle, realign the leg to tabletop, place the foot down, have a little break. Now your options could be going for 10 toe taps in single leg tabletop, 10 on each side, really utilizing your connection on this unstable surface. For some of you, it may be coming up into double leg tabletop, and that's what I'll go through next. So decide, do I need to come back to working in single leg tabletop, or do I want to try coming into double leg? Now coming into double leg tabletop, you think about that floating placement of pubic bone, tailbone, and asis. And the tailbone has a greater relationship in this safe spine position in double leg tabletop on the ball. Now I'm using a full ball, yours could be half inflated, particularly if you're unsteady with 2 feet off the mat. Hands are on the hip bones, switch on, inhale, lift pelvic floor, exhale, transverse abdominals, zipper from pubic bone to belly button, and flatten. Good, take a deep breath in, relax the shoulders. We're going to exhale, come into single leg tabletop. Now finding balance on the ball, your focus will be your tailbone and these abdominals. Take a deep breath in, relax the shoulders. Now the ribs are sinking towards the hip bones on the next exhale, and so is the tailbone, drawing down the surface of your ball, your belly button drawing inwards, flattening through that transverse band once more. On the exhale, we can float the heel off the mat of the opposite foot, and then float the leg up to tabletop. There shouldn't be any jerking motion through the pelvis. Your belly should feel flat from hip bone to hip bone. If you haven't got there with this attempt, bring the feet down, come back to your toe taps. If you manage to get both feet off the mat in tabletop, hold and breathe. Knees could be together or a little space between. We're holding in balance. Now you could work your toe taps here, exhale to tap the toe and inhale to float, alternating the legs. You may want to go for a few reps of your toe taps, just so that you're stabilizing enough to find the ribs are sinking in and down, flattening abdominals as you tap the toe towards the mat. For some of you, you may want to try to take the arms from the mat. Let's bring the arms to rest by our sides. Now I'm going to float one arm from the elbow to the wrist off the mat as I continue with my toe taps. I'm able to stabilize through one supporting arm and one half arm. To make it harder, I could extend the full arm. I could begin my toe taps with one arm completely floating from the mat. I'm on a full ball and this is quite challenging. Shoulder from the ear, ribs in and down. To come into double leg tabletop with both arms floating from the mat, I really need to set the rib cage in and down, shoulders from the ears. 2 arms floating from the mat is very strong on the T-zone and the rectus abdominis, and I can continue my toe taps. Very challenging when you are talking. Now you could go for a few reps. If you need to come back into balance, you could bring one upper forearm from the mat and keep the elbow to wrist off the mat on one side. You can always come back to both arms just in this position, utilizing your toe taps. If you finished your single leg toe taps, I'd like you to go into your leg slides. Aim for 5 to 10 reps on each side. Utilize this straight arm position for balance and really work strongly through that one leg slide, supporting yourself on the mat through one foot connection. If you're in your double leg tabletop, you could also possibly add, as you tap the toe, the opposite arm extension, coming into your dead bugs, which is a very strong exercise in this position. Can also be done in single leg tabletop, and if you'd like to try this exercise as I go through this advanced intermediate exercise, you can add single leg tabletop and continue on. So as you exhale to tap the toe, ribs sink in and down, the shoulder of the opposite arm draws down, and you exhale to reach the arm overhead. Inhale, hand comes over chest, knee over hip. Exchanging in double leg tabletop or working for 4 to 5 reps on one side in single leg before alternating single leg tabletop on the opposite side. I'm going to go for 2 more and then we're going to come back to the mat. We've been up in the air for a long time. 1 more each side. Good. Come back to double leg tabletop or single leg tabletop. Bring the arms down. Bring one foot down at a time and then switch off as the second foot comes back to the mat. Have a little roll of the pelvis on the ball. Let's do a little bit of a pelvic roll and then let's come into our pelvic curl. Hands on your hip bones, please. I'd like you to draw a clock face on your torso now. So your sternum is going to be 12 o'clock. Your pubic bone is 6, your right hip bone is 9, and your left hip bone is 3 o'clock. Your clock face, you want to wind up the time. Now we're first going to begin by coming into a bit of a lateral flexion position, but this is instigated through your pelvis and not your back. Your knees and your feet want to stay aligned to the ceiling. Switching back onto T-zone. Once you've got your connection, take a nice soft breath in. Now you're going to shimmy or lift your right hip up towards 12 as you drop your left hip down towards 6. Coming into this skewed hipped position and then inhaling, coming back to center where your belt line is parallel once more. On the exhale, lifting the right hip up towards 12, the left hip down towards 6. Inhale to center. Do that a few times on each side, hip hinging, utilizing your QLs at the back of your body, but instigated through your pelvis, lifting your right hip up, dropping your left hip down. Good, now this might be a small movement for you, it's quite large for me, but you might have a little bit of congestion and a little bit of compression in the lumbar spine, which prevents this happening. Last one on this side, come back to level pelvis, stay on. On your next exhale, you're going to lift your left hip, up towards 12 as the right hip drops down. Inhale, come back to a level pelvis and a parallel belt line. Keep it going on one side. Exhale, lift the left hip, drop the right hip. Good, and come back to center. So it's not side to side like we were doing in the beginning. This is more of a skewed positioning where I'm letting one hip lift and drop before coming back to a level pelvis. One side will have a smaller range of motion than the other, but we're looking up to free the lumbar spine congestion. Make this your last one, come back to a level pelvis. Now utilizing the pressure through your feet and just shoulders, keep the T-zone working or switch it back on. I want you to dial up the time by winding the clock face, circling your pelvis on the ball. Gentle in and out breath, allow the pelvis to move freely as you roll your ball and wind up time. I'm using the pressure through my feet. I'm softening or closing my eyes. And I can start to feel this circumduction of the lumbar spine and pelvis. Now moving up to the shoulders. I can feel my head nodding along with the tempo of my pelvis. This is a full body connection. Now I'm going to come back to center, take a deep breath in, and now try and reverse my clock. And it's quite hard to find that anti-clockwise rhythm. Some of you will find it's quite clunky and sticky, and you have to work a little bit more mindfully to work in reverse, to circle the pelvis on the ball and allow the lumbar spine to move a little bit more freely. Good. Once you've found the rhythm, breathe in and out gently. Use the pressure through the feet, the shoulders, allow the head to nod along with the tempo, and let the spine really dictate where it's moving. Let's come back to center. Let's come back to a level pelvis. Let's relax here, switch off for a small break. Now I'm going into pelvic curl on the ball. The ball could be removed at this point if you don't like the sensation of it underneath you. You want your heels to be a little bit closer to you. Arms by your side. Switch on to the T-zone. Once you've got your connection, take a deep breath in. Now we're going to begin to tilt the lumbar spine towards the mat by tilting the pelvis back. You have your tailbone and your pubic bone lifting. Lumbar spine will not meet the mat once you're on the ball, but we really want to work hard to tilt the pelvis back. Now we're going to squeeze the glutes, push into the heels. On the exhale, start to lift the pelvis off the ball. Now the ball is going to expand and push the lumbar spine from the mat. And we're going to work to roll through the thoracic back to come to rest on the shoulders and take a deep breath in. Check your ribs are softly drawn down. You haven't arched your back. Glutes and hammies are working. On the exhale, we're going to bring the thoracic back down to the mat first. Exhaling as ribs sink in and down. Working hard to not just dump the weight back to the ball. Place your weight back onto the ball slowly, and as you roll down through the lumbar spine, shift the weight back to the ball, and then come back to neutral through that pelvis and lumbar spine. Inhale at the bottom, tilt the pelvis back, squeezing through the glutes, push into the heels, gently take the weight of the pelvis from the ball, then roll the lumbar spine off, peel off the thoracic back and come to the shoulders. Inhale. Remember, we're moving slowly on the exhale, releasing the upper back to the mat first. You'll find the ball, but don't dump your weight into that pelvis. Slowly roll down on the exhale. Shift your weight back to the ball once the lumbar spine's down, and then inhale, float the pelvis to neutral. 2 more. Tilt the pelvis back, exhale, squeeze your glutes, push into your heels. Now you're moving very slowly so you can feel the ball expand and push you off, and you roll through that mid-back to come onto your shoulders, relax your neck, take a deep breath in, ribs down, squeeze the bum, exhale, glutes, upper back comes back down, not the pelvis first. We're working really hard through the hamstrings and the glute max. And then we're going to inhale, come back to neutral. 1 more. Tilt the pelvis back. Push into the heels. Exhale, peel the pelvis off. Expanding through that ball to lift your pelvis off. Good, rolling through that lumbar spine, mid-back, come to the top. Take a nice deep breath in. Keeping the glutes and hamstrings. Exhale, the ribs comes down first. Don't dump into the ball. We want to roll down through the lumbar spine. Then shift back to the ball. Inhale, come back to neutral. Squeeze your inner thighs together, roll onto your side. Pop the ball out from underneath your pelvis. And then bring your pelvis back to the mat. Now you might feel that the lumbar spine here feels a little bit longer, might feel a bit more springy, and it might feel a little bit closer to the mat. Perfectly normal. We've released quite a lot of tension through the lumbar spine. We're going to pop the ball now between the VMO for our pendulum. Bring our toes and our heels together. Now you're not bursting the ball yet, you're just holding it here. Arms are outstretched wide from the chest, palms facing up. Relax through the neck and the shoulders. Switching back onto the T-zone, and your connection should be a little bit more easier to find. We're going to inhale, softly lift the pelvic floor. You don't need as much as you did when you were on the ball. So don't really tighten the pelvic floor. Think about coming back to your 30-25% lift. And on the exhale, not the lumbar spine, but flattening the abdominals, pubic bone to belly button, hip bones narrowing. Good. We're going to inhale as both legs roll over one side of the body. Now, one hip, one glute, one foot disconnects from the mat. Squeeze the ball as if to burst it, but scoop out through the abdominals and draw the legs back to center. Good. Release the squeeze in the middle. Keep the feet together. Inhale the legs over one side of the body. Shoulders relaxed and melted on the mat. Squeeze the burst. Exhale, bring the legs back to center. For those of you that want to work with feet off the ground, you can bring the feet into double leg tabletop. You may find that your safe spine position is a little bit easier to find now that you're not on the ball. You still want to keep the feet together as you inhale the legs over one side of the body. Squeeze to burst the ball. Really scoop the abdominals to draw the legs back to center. Keep the knees aligned over your hip bones in tabletop. Inhale the legs over. Squeeze to burst. Exhale, draw the legs back to center. Good, keep it going. Let's go for 3 more on each side. Melt and relax the upper back into the mat. Relax the neck and the shoulders. If you need to close down the eyes, you can do so here. 2 more on each side. Really working at the waistline, those external obliques, as well as internal obliques connecting. Inhale the legs over. Exhale the ribs in and down. Draw the legs back to center, scooping, bursting the ball. 1 more. Come back to center. The feet can come down one at a time out of tabletop. We can switch off and have a little break from the pelvic floor and the abdominals. Beautiful work. Excellent. We're going to do a little bit of internal rotation. Let's part the feet. We'll do a little bit of our oblique curl just to add on. If you're not working oblique curl, come back to bent knee fallouts, take the ball away, and just work on one knee dropping out to the side, keeping the pelvis level by keeping the rib cage in and down. My oblique curl can be used with the ball as an assist just to promote VMO connection. So not squeezing to burst the ball here. Now the hands go behind the head, elbows wide, chest open, shoulders away from the ears. Switch onto the T-zone. Be aware we're not flattening the lumbar spine to the mat. We're working in neutral. And we're going to have a light tuck of chin to chest to float the head from the mat and place the weight of the skull in your hands. On the exhale, we're going to sink the ribs in and down to scoop the abdominals as we peel the upper body off. Now we're going to rotate the upper body over, armpit to the opposite hip bone. Then we're going to unrotate and lower. Beautiful. Exhale to curl, sink the ribs in and down, rotate, exhale, armpit to the opposite hip bone. Inhale to unrotate and lower. Keep it going. Now we want to keep the light tuck of chin to chest, keep the neck in neutral, and if you're utilising the ball between the VMO, you'll notice that your pelvis is staying square. You're not rolling your hips to the side. This internal rotation is upper body over the lower body. Some of you may want to work in double leg tabletop. You can keep the ball where it is. It still encourages a nice square pelvis. And we want to make sure the knees are not being drawn towards the chest if you're working with 2 feet off the mat. Exhale to curl and rotate. Inhale to lower. Good. Let's go for 2 more on each side. Have a really strong connection to the obliques, the T-zone, the rectus abdominis, and also those VMOs and abductors. Last one, come back to the mat, release the upper body down, release the hands from behind your head, pop the ball out, have a little break. Beautiful. We're finished in this position. We're going to squeeze our inner thighs together, roll onto our side to come into side lying. Now I'm going to position the ball between my ankle bones, not my heels, but the ball does not have to be used in this position at all. It works, it makes the exercises more intense on the glutes because again it's unstable and the stabilizers of the hip really work harder. Now we're going to come down into side lying. Again, pop the towel or pillow to realign the head to take weight off of that cervical spine. You could be in your bent forearm position too if this is comfortable. Hand on the top hip. Make sure you roll the top hip forwards. The legs begin at that 45 angle from hip to knee. Now clam 1, we want to make sure top hip bone forwards, but top hip bone pressed down, bottom waist lifted. The rib to hip connection in the bottom waist is quite strong, and this switches on the pelvic floor. Keep this hand here to push the top hip down, squeeze to burst the ball, and flatten the abdominals from hip bone to hip bone. Exhale to open up your clown 1, top hip stays forwards, inhale to close. Squeeze to burst the ball, exhale to open, and inhale to close. So your clown 1 is about this opening at the front of the hip, which is instigated by your glute med at the back. Your hands on the top hip bone, keep the thumb where it is, flip the fingers round, squeeze to burst the ball, exhale to open. You should feel your glute med contraction as you burst the ball, and as you open, that conditioning phase is quite intense on that glute med. If you find your hip flexors doing a lot of the work, roll the top hip further forwards, concentrate on the squeeze of the ball. It may mean that you're straining to open up in the front of the hip, and your range is taking away from the work of the glute medius. Good. Bottom waist wants to remain lifted. Abdominals are flat. Final 2. Squeeze, exhale, open. Inhale, close. Last one. Beautiful. Stay switched on, the bottom waist up. Float the feet at hip height, clam 2. Squeezing to burst the ball to flatten the abdominals, bottom waist still lifted. Exhale, open, clam 2. Top hip bone stays forwards. Squeeze, exhale, open. Now, if this is uncomfortable on the bottom hip joint, you can add some extra padding, a towel underneath it here, or you could lay on your back, come back to your glute squeezes. You could stand upright and do some hip extension, standing hip extension, working the glute max instead too. Good, let's do 5. You don't want your top hip bone moving back. We want to stay really strong, the bottom leg switching on glute minimus as we work to squeeze and burst the ball. The ball's not wriggling around. I'm working extra hard to keep it still and stable. Oh, and this is very, very intense on my glute med. 2 more. Last one. Come back to the mat and rest the legs down. Good. Keep the legs where they are. We're going to realign. Shoot the bottom arm, that you're resting your ear on, straight out from the chest. Now, if you need to, by all means, grab that pillow, take the weight and the stress off the cervical spine. You can also do this with a yoga block. Top hand, places on top of the bottom palm. We have this nice crucifix or half crucifix position. Hip bone still forwards, top hip bone pressed down, bottom waist up. We're going to utilize the ball, so flattening at the abdominals from hip bone to hip bone. Sweep the top arm forwards, inhale. Now, as we reach the arm up towards the ceiling, I want you to squeeze the ball to keep the top hip bone forwards. Eye is going to travel with the thumb. Exhale, push the palm behind you, opening up to stretch the chest. Inhale, hand to the ceiling. Exhale, close palm to palm. Inhale, sweep the arm forwards. Reach it towards the ceiling first. Eye on the thumb. Squeeze to burst the ball, top hip forwards. Exhale, open up that chest. Inhale, hand to the ceiling. Exhale, close palm to palm. Good, 3 more. Inhale. Exhale, hand to ceiling. I will travel with that thumb. Exhale, squeeze to burst the ball, top hip forwards. Inhale, hand to ceiling and close. Good, 2 more. Reach, inhale. Exhale, hand to the ceiling. Squeeze. Exhale, push the palm behind you. Good, inhale and exhale. Last one. Nice deep stretch, opening through that thoracic spine, preparing for that thoracic release, which you'll get in the end. Lovely. Come back to hand, resting palm to palm. You can stay here if you choose, and you could go maybe back into your clam 1 or straight leg raise. I'm going to go into double leg lift, so I'm going to get rid of my pillow, reposition my ear on the inner forearm or the bicep hold, shoot both legs long. Toes are just in front, so if I look down, my toes are in front of my hip bones. I'm going to roll my top hip a little bit further forward, hand in front for balance. Now I'm going to begin by switching on the pelvic floor here. Inhale to lift, exhale to flatten the abdominals, lengthen the legs from the hip bone. Now squeezing to burst the ball and the inner thigh. Exhale, double leg lift, and inhale to lower. Squeeze, exhale, double leg lift, inhale, lower. I'm trying to lift my top hip bone into my top rib cage, shortening my top waistline, and this means my bottom waist will apex towards the mat. I'm working hard to keep the pelvic floor recruited, and the squeeze of the ball works into the inner thighs as well as the pelvic floor here. Shoulder relaxed if you're supporting yourself with your top arm. Try not to roll your hip back. Try to keep on the sideline position. Squeeze, exhale, double leg lift, and inhale to lower. Between the rib and the hip, the obliques are getting a very strong conditioning phase. Final 2. And 1. Beautiful. Bring the legs back to the mat. Bend to 45. Push yourself up. Let's change sides. We begin with clam 1 in side lying. You can have a pillow if you want to realign the neck or the shoulders. The ball is between the ankle bones, not the heels. And we want to make sure that we're beginning with the legs in 45. Hips, knees, feet stacked. Top hip bones forwards. On the exhale, we're going to push the top hip bone down and lift the bottom waist. Now we want to squeeze to burst the ball and initiate the transverse band switching on. Exhale to open clam 1 and inhale to close. Now this side of mine has a smaller range than the other side due to my hamstring strain. I need to make sure the bottom waist is lifted. I'm not trying to take the hip back, and I'm keeping myself really, really situated on the sideline position. Squeeze to burst the ball, exhale to open and inhale to close. Checking bottom waist, T-zone, as well as the glute medius on that top leg. Working strongly through your clam 1 for your 10 reps. 3 left. I can feel the glute meat. Now the ball's not rolling, keep the ball nice and stable. Your last one, squeeze, exhale to open clam and inhale to close. Keeping the bottom waist up, let's float the feet out, hip height clam 2. Squeeze, exhale to open, inhale to close. Don't let this top hip rotate back. We want to keep it level, we want to keep the pelvis very still to work the glute med and now the minimus all on the bottom leg. Can really feel that. Equally, bottom waist lifted, keeps pelvic floor on. Good, 10 of these, 4 more. Can really feel the bottom leg of glute minimus. And as I squeeze into the ball, the top leg still works that glute medius. Final 2. Don't let yourself rotate back. Keep the spine nice and stable in neutral. Last one. Bring both feet back to the mat and have that little rest. Shoot the bottom arm straight out from the chest, palm facing up, top palm on top. Keeping the T-zone working, that's the bottom waist lifted, the abdominals flattening. We're going to inhale, sweep the top arm forwards. Now as we bring the arm towards the ceiling, it's a squeeze of the ball to burst. Exhale, push the top hip forwards. Stretch the arm behind you to get that nice chest stretch. Inhale, hand to the ceiling and close palm to palm, exhale. Inhale, exhale, hand to the ceiling. Let your eye line travel as it will stop if the neck is compromised. And don't try and force the neck to move beyond its natural line. Good. Really squeeze to keep the top hip forwards here, so we're not rotating through the lumbar spine or pelvis, sending some love to that upper back. And the chest getting a nice stretch. Good, let's make this our last one. Inhale forwards, hand to the ceiling, exhale, eye on the thumb. Exhale, squeeze to burst the ball, top hip forwards, bottom waist up, push the arm back. Inhale, hand to the ceiling. Exhale, close palm to palm. Beautiful. Shoot out both legs long for double leg lift. Keep the pillow where it is if you need, or transition to that bicep or straight arm. Hand in front, roll the top hip forward, toes just in front of the hip bones. Inhale, lift the pelvic floor. Exhale, think about the abdominals flattening, zipper and button. Really extend the legs out from the hips, squeeze to burst the ball and the inner thighs. Exhale, double leg lift and inhale to lower. Exhale, double leg lift, top hip into top rib cage. Inhale to lower. 10 repetitions of our double leg lift. Now in this exercise, don't be tempted to try and pull yourself on up and jackknife, rolling backwards onto your back. Make sure the upper body is quite stable, ears staying down on the pillow or the inner forearm, the shoulder relaxed with the hand that's supporting you on the mat. Utilize the ball, squeeze and the inner thighs to burst and lift. Final 3, 2. Our final one, squeeze, exhale, double leg lift and inhale to lower. Bend the knees to 45. Beautiful, have a rest. We're going to push ourselves on up, grab hold of the ball and place it to the side of the mat. We'll do a little bit of 4-point kneeling and finish with our back work before we get that nice thoracic release. So in 4-point kneeling, we're just going to work on our swimming. Hands are in the box position underneath the shoulders, knees are underneath the hip bones. Now I want you to think about that floating triangle, which was your pubic bone, your tailbone between your butt cheeks, and your hip bones at the front of your pelvis. We want those points to have a nice, even balance point. So they are still floating between the mat and the ceiling, except you've split your body, so it's now your tailbone that has a greater focus. Take a nice soft breath in and release the shoulders from the ears. Think about lifting the pelvic floor and think about the soft draw down of the tailbone. Just elongate and think about lengthening it down. On the exhale, lift the abdominals off the mat, draw them off the front of your mat and inside the front of your pelvis. And you should feel like the lumbar spine is not being pulled down towards the mat. In fact, it's being drawn long just like your tailbone. Keep that connection strong in your box, shoulders down. We're going to reach on out through opposite arm and foot and draw a straight line in front and behind your box. Squeeze your glute max to lift the weight of your foot. It could just be an inch from the mat. Draw the shoulder blade down to lift the hand. Inhale, hand and foot come back to the mat. Change sides. On the exhale, reach on out. Squeezing the glute, it could just lift the toes from the mat. We could draw the shoulder blade down to lift the arm. By all means, you could stay connected to the mat and squeeze the glute, draw the shoulder blade down. Just work at staying balanced through your box. Some of you may even want to take the arms and legs into separate exercises. Work swimming arms for 10 reps and swimming legs for 10 reps. Ultimately, we would like both arm and leg to be moving together and utilising our glute max connection and our shoulder blade drawing down our back to get a cross-chain connection like we had when we were utilising our single leg half coordination exercise floating on our ball in supine. Now you don't want to feel like you're losing that drawdown of your tailbone or the internal lift of the abdominals. In fact, the pelvis is floating still parallel between your mat and the ceiling. One more each side for your swimming arm and leg. Reach on out, exhale, draw the shoulder blade down, squeeze the glute max to lift the hand and foot. Inhale, hand comes back to the mat. Good, last one, squeeze. Good, come back to the mat. Draw your glutes back towards your heels. Rest yourself down, forehead resting between your arms on the mat in your child's pose for a little break. We're just going to go through our stop signs and our swan prep, lying on our stomach in prone. Now I am going to place the ball, and it's a half inflated ball, underneath my pelvis. I'm going to position it between my belt line, between my hip line on my belt, between my hips on my belt line. And this is going to help me find that nice balance point of pelvis between the tailbone and my pubic bone again. But some of you may find this uncomfortable. This might be good for you if you're quite lordotic, or if you find that your single leg tabletop is quite stressful on your lumbar spine. So I'm positioning the ball between my hips on my belt line, and I'm going to bring myself down. Now some of you may want to realign the head with a pillow as well, just to take pressure off of the cervical spine. Hands are at face height, elbows are bent, forearms relaxed on the mat in stop sign position. Turn your heels out, switch your glutes off, rest your head onto the mat. Now with the ball underneath the pelvis here, you want to work a little bit harder and again take focus of your tailbone in this position. Now as you inhale to lift the pelvic floor gently, that squeeze of front and back passage also instigates the soft draw down of your tailbone. Now you're not squeezing and clenching your buttocks, but you want to think about drawing the tailbone down so it's floating more in a neutral position over the ball. As you exhale to lift the abdominals off the mat and inside the front of your pelvis, you also want to think about keeping the pubic bone at the front of the pelvis nice and level. So we're not arching through the lumbar spine and squashing the ball into the mat. In fact, we have that nice lightness of our hip bones on the mat that we might have in our plank 1 position. Here in this position, shoulders begin away from the ears. On your next exhale for stop signs, you're going to glide the shoulder blades down your back, drawing into the waistline beneath the rib cage. Elbows glide down into the waist. Inhale, hands come to face height. Exhale, feel the shoulder blades glide down your back, drawing into the waistline beneath the rib cage. Good. Inhale, hands come to face height. Try and keep your forearms on the mat. That may mean that you need a slightly wider stance. And try and feel the whole shoulder girdle moving down your back into the waistline where there are no bones, that soft section beneath your rib cage. We want to encourage the middle fiber of trapezius to work strongly in this position. And for those of you that are floating on the ball, remember, draw the tailbone, elongate it down between your buttocks to keep these abdominals lifted and the lumbar spine in neutral. Good. No tension through the neck or shoulders. Let's make this our last one. Glide the shoulder blades down on the exhale into that mid-soft section underneath your ribcage at your waist. And inhale, hands to face high. Have a little rest, sink forwards with the chest and the weight of the forehead into the mat. And decide if you'd like to pop your ball out. You could at this point pop the ball out from underneath the pelvis. Have a think about those points of drawing the tailbone down without the ball in place. It might be a little bit easier for you to find that abdominal connection in prone. I'm going to keep the ball where it is, and in fact, I'm going to utilize it in my swan prep. Now, I want my upper back to do the most amount of work in this extension. It's upper back extension, not lumbar spine. And so I'm going to work hard to keep the tailbone softly drawn down. I'm going to switch back onto the T-zone. Inhale, lift pelvic floor. Think about that soft draw down of the tailbone, elongating down between your butt cheeks. On the exhale, lift the abdominals off the mat, draw them inside the front of the pelvis. 2 hip bones are floating. If the ball is not there, you should have that floated hip bone position. Now the hands stay wide. I want to begin this move by rolling my nose towards the edge of the mat line on an inhale. Now I can really feel that my tailbone wants to lift with my pelvis on the ball. I don't want this to happen, so I'm going to look down the tip of my nose. On the next exhale, as I peel my chest from the mat, I'm drawing the shoulder blades down my back to bring my chest into this back extension by drawing the shoulder blades down into the waistline. This is a much more honest back extension here. Inhale, the chest comes back down to the mat. Nose and eyes look into the mat once more. And then I begin to roll the nose under the chin and round the forehead forwards, resting it on the mat. If you like the positioning of the ball where it is, keep it here or continue on, or get rid of it, sorry. Inhale, roll the nose forwards towards the edge of the mat line, peeling the forehead off. Keep looking down the tip of the nose, and on the exhale, encourage the shoulder blades to glide down your back, tailbone elongating down, drawing the shoulders into the waistline to peel the chest off. Good, inhale, the chest comes back down, touch your nose, back on your mat. Exhale, roll that nose underneath your chin, round open the back of your neck. Good, keep it going. So equally, if the ball is no longer here, you still want that positioning of your lumbar spine not taking over the move. So as we inhale to roll the nose forwards, we're thinking about keeping our nose and eye line looking into the mat, even if the forehead peels off. Exhale, we glide the shoulder blades down our back, drawing into the waistline beneath the rib cage. Now, I want to feel like my lumbar spine is not taking this movement, so I'm drawing the tailbone softly down. Good, inhale, we bring the chest back down, nose back on the mat. Exhale, roll that nose under your chin. Let's do one more. Inhale, roll the nose forwards. Keep looking down the tip of the nose. Exhale, glide the shoulder blades down your back to peel the chest off gently. Good, the tailbone is elongating down. It's not rounding or lifting. Inhale, the chest comes back down, nose back on the mat. And exhale, roll that nose underneath your chin. Open up the back of your neck, take a nice deep breath in and out. Soften, releasing the head onto the mat, allowing the T-zone to soften, the pelvic floor to release. Good, bring your hands down to chest height. Push your chest off, round your upper back towards the ceiling. Round your tailbone down. Pull your buttocks back towards your heels. Rest your forehead down and have a nice child's prayer stretch here for a few breaths if you need to counteract this workload through the upper back. We're going to finish with a nice thoracic release. And so in order to do that here, we're going to take the ball. I'm going to fully inflate it. This gives a really intense release. Some of you might like to work through a half inflated ball. For some of you that are not curling, you will want to position a very deep pillow behind your head with the ball in the thoracic back, and that will take pressure off of the rectus abdominis and it will prevent you from curling. So pop the pillow behind you if you need. Now from the bent knee position, where we place the tailbone onto the ball, we're now going to squeeze the shoulder blades behind us and place the ball between the shoulders. It's just above my bra strap line. It's not in my neck or shoulders. So you can see here, it's where I feel the workload from stop signs and swan prep. Using my hands under my thighs, I'm going to bring myself down gently, bending at my knees to realign into my base position, bringing my hands, oh, I'm pulling on my hair, behind my head to cradle the weight of my head and neck. Elbows are wide, a light tap of chin to chest. Now, some of you will already find that you're laying more than halfway over the ball, searching for the mat with the back of your head. I want you to think about the tuck of chin to chest, and I want you to exhale and draw your ribs softly down towards your hips to bring you floating halfway over the ball into more of a neutral spine position where you can switch on the T-zone. In this position, take a nice soft breath in to lift the pelvic floor, and on the exhale, think about the transverse fan switching on. If you've got this steep pillow underneath your head, try and keep the head and neck resting down, but tuck the chin to the chest to get that length. Now we're going to come into ab curl 1. You're going to exhale to curl the ribs down towards the hips to peel the back of the head further from the mat. I'm still aware of my neutral spine. I'm not compressing lumbar spine into the mat. Scooping out to lift. Inhale, just lower back halfway. Chin lightly tuck to chest. Exhale, sink the ribs towards the hips to scoop out the bowl. Peel the upper body from the mat. Inhale, only halfway. Good, let's go for 6 more. Exhale to curl. And inhale to lower. Some of you, those of you that are not curling, will find that this position is just you exhaling ribs to hips. So if you've got the pillow behind you, resting the head and shoulders on the pillow here, you could just be working, you could just be working with the arms by your side, chin lightly tucked to chest, and on the exhale, going more for a hundreds prep position, sinking the ribs towards the hips to flatten the abdominals, and then inhaling, letting the arms creep up. That could be for you if you've got a neck problem or you're not curling for any other reason. Maybe you're working with a back issue, maybe you're working with a pelvic floor issue. You can still work in this position for thoracic release, but you don't want to add any extra pressure through lower back, neck or pelvic floor. For those of you that are using the curl in this position, same rules apply. Don't pull yourself up with your head and neck. Try to use the draw down of rib to hip and the flattening of the abdominals, not the lower back into the mat. Let's do our last one. Exhale to curl, ribs sinking in and down. And now on the inhale, I'd like you to roll back. Don't stop at halfway. I want you to keep going. Let the back of your head search for the mat. Let your ribs expand, elbows reaching out to the corners of your mat. If you're uncomfortable, release the hands from behind your head. Send your arms wide in the pendulum position. Focus on your breath. Inhale deeply. Feel the rib cage expand and lift from rib to hip. And on the exhale, sink the ribs in and down fully and allow your shoulders to wrap around the ball. Good. Focus on this for 4 long deep breaths in and out. Inhale deeply. The rib cage expands. Exhale, ribs sink in and down. Good, keep it going, focus on the breath. Two more. Last one. Let's bring the hands back behind the head if you released. Light tug of chin to chest. Sink the ribs in and down on the exhale to float yourself halfway over the ball. Come into that neutral spine position if possible. If you're working through non-curling, you're going to go into your leg slide, resting your head down on the pillow, the arms by your side. Those of you that are curling, we're going to switch on through the T-zone and then come into a static ab curl, exhale, drawing the ribs down towards the hips. Chin lightly tuck to chest, hold this connection, hold the curl. Flatten the abdominals. Go into leg slide, exhale, leg slide. Inhale, slide the leg back on in, keep curled. Exhale as you slide the leg on out, think ribs drawn towards hips. Inhale, slide the leg in. Exhale, leg slide, flatten the abdominals. Inhale, slide the leg on in. Good. Leg slide. Keep that light tap of chin to chest, elbows wide. Some of you may be comfortable staying with leg slides. Some of you might turn this into lift foot. Exhale, lift foot, knee above hip. Keep the curl. Keep that light tap of chin to chest. Inhale, foot down. Exhale, lift foot. Inhale, down. Going for 3 more on each side, or coming back to leg slide. Resting the upper body down on the pillow. Still doing the lift foot if you choose. Working on that rib to hip connection. 1 more. Last one, exhale and inhale. Feet back to the mat, take a deep breath in, and on the exhale here, just let yourself sink back. Not halfway, let the upper body come back down. The back of the head searching for the mat, the elbows widening, searching for the corners of the mat. Again, you could release the hands from behind your head, send them wide in the pendulum position if your shoulder prefers that here. Sinking into the ball, let's focus for 5 long deep breaths once more. Inhale, feel the rib cage expand out to the side, the lift of rib to hip in front. Exhale, the ribs sink in and down, wrap your shoulder blades around the ball, swallow it here. Good, 4 more. Inhale deeply, exhale completely. Relax the tension off the neck. Allow the weight of your head to really release through the upper back here. Last one. Inhale deeply, expand that rib cage. Exhale, sink the ribs around the ball. Good. Gently bring the knees together, squeeze your inner thighs together. Roll on your side, pop the ball out, and then lay back with bent knees and feel that lovely release that you've created of the thoracic back. The lumbar spine may also feel a little bit closer to the mat since we released a lot of tension through the pelvis and a lot of chest congestion through the thoracic, through the fascia of the lumbar spine. Beautiful. Gently squeeze the inner thighs together, roll on your side once more. Push yourself up slowly to come to seated to finish. Beautiful work. So I hope you find that this session has left you deeply centered to your T-zone. If you need to, I've left a little abdominal challenge for intermediate and to advanced and beginner to intermediate levels, working either in double leg tabletop or the single leg tabletop alternative on my channel too. You can check that out. It's included in your email from this week, week 1, term 2. Have a lovely week. I'll see you next week on the mat. Bye.